Hello and welcome back to the DriveTribe podcast. No, we didn't die. We just have a month off for reasons that I'll get to in a minute. We're going to be speaking about Clarkson, Hammond and May, the new Bmw i4, the new Peugeot 308, a new Aston Martin. I've driven a new M3 M4. I'm going to run out of time listing all the things because there's so much to pack in. Oh no, there's still some music left. Right, let's go. I give myself 2 out of 10 for that. Yeah. But to be fair, it's been a while.
You're out of practice.
Yeah, so sorry, listeners, viewers. It's been a while. It's been over a month, which is very bad on our part. But sadly, not sadly, a month ago, it's got wrong already. Sadly, I had a child. A month ago, I went on paternity leave because my girlfriend had a second child. So I wasn't around to do a podcast. And Rachael and Lucy, as you're about to hear, have been mega well busy. So yeah, there's just not been podcast time. It's been a mix of looking after babies, looking after Clarkson, Hammond and May, and in Rachel's case, looking after her blood alcohol volume or something.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a packed episode. Lucy's going to speak about a road trip where she saw Clarkson, Hammond and May in their various houses in one day, or not in their houses. She saw them in a COVID-safe setting. And Rachel's been off-roading and getting muddy. And I've driven more cars than you can shake a stick at, some of which are quite interesting. So let's do a bit of news first, and then we'll spend the bulk of this podcast, I imagine, chatting about what we've been up to. So here's the news. You might not think you care about Peugeot, but you care about Peugeot. They've made some cool cars in the past, got 205 GTI, and they've made some cars. But what's quite exciting, apart from the little patch of light on my chin, is they've just announced a new 308. And before you fall asleep, this is going to be quite an important car because it's their rival to the Golf, which is obviously ubiquitous.
Is that how you say Golf every time you say it, by the way?
What was that?
Do you always say Golf like that?
Golf! Did I say it in a strange way? How did I say Golf? Did I put an umlaut on the O?
No, it's just very enthusiastic. But I mean, I like it, yeah.
You also mispronounced Peugeot. It's actually Peugeot.
Oh, Peugeot? Okay, may we? Apologies. That was Lucy there very quietly. I don't know if you could hear her. Have to sort you out in the edit, Lucy. But basically, there's a new 308 here. It looks really cool. I think it's got those Fang-like daytime running lights down the side, like new Peugeots have, like the 208 has. And it's longer. It's got more room in the back seats. Peugeot's trying to move it up market as well, so it's all leathery and Alcantara-y. Obviously, the engines, it's 2021, so most of them are plug-in hybrids with an EV range of 37 miles, which isn't bad if you've got to run around doing stuff in town with your kids or whatever. And there's going to be a hybrid four-wheel drive hot hatch version, which I presume will be the Peugeot 308 eGTI or something like that, which we don't know, but is going to have about 300 horsepower. And if you don't want hybrid, you can get a standard combustion petrol version. I think there's a diesel version with a manual gearbox. So, yeah, the big news here really, though, is it's the first Peugeot to have the new Peugeot badge, which looks a bit like, I think, a family crest. If you are a bit of a posho and you've got a family crest, it might look a bit like new Peugeot badge. Do you like it, Rachael Hogg? You style icon? That wasn't meant to be laced with sarcasm, sorry.
I know, I was like, I'm not used to you ever complimenting me though, so anytime you do it just feels like it is laced with sarcasm anyway, so I'm going to take it as an insult. Yeah, I can't get past the coat of arms thing. I mean, I'm kind of not against that because I don't know, I feel like it's taking Peugeot market, but I mean, out of anything, I just want them to make the E-Legend. Like, why has that not happened yet?
What's the Peugeot E-Legend? That sounds like a McDonald's burger. Hang on. Quickly Googling. Oh, yeah, that is cool. I remember that.
Yeah, from Geneva a couple of years ago. Was it Geneva? One of the motor shows.
One of the motor shows. Yeah, that's cool. It's like a rakish 3-door coupe thing that, I don't know, looks really cool.
And just that, they just need to make that. And that would look good with the new badge, I feel. Just make the
Yeah.
electric Peugeot, sort it out.
Yeah, go on, make that really impractical two-door car that you won't sell any of. Do it.
Yeah, do it for motoring journalists everywhere.
Lucy, you grew up in France, as our listeners know. What stories do you have from your time in France that relate to Peugeots?
I mean, not very many. I remember specifically seeing in a newspaper the Peugeot Onyx concept car, I think. I might be making the name up. Like a really cool bronze-looking concept car from Peugeot. I remember thinking that's cool and being surprised it was Peugeot because only sort of my friends had really old, shitty Peugeots, so I didn't think it was a cool car brand. So I remember seeing that concept and being, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a 2012 concept. So for me and Rachael, that was yesterday. For Lucy, that was when she was born. So Peugeot are capable of cool things. I drove the E208 last year, really liked it. They don't try and make things too sporty. They just let them be a bit blancmangy, and that's quite nice. Having a car that's honest with its Frenchness is quite nice. So anyway, I look forward to possibly not driving the 308 at some point. Next bit of news is electric news from BMW. BMW's unveiled its iX3, and that's its electric version of the X3. But it's just this week shown off the production version of the i4, called the i4. I kind of completely messed that up. Basically, this is actually previewing a petrol car. So there's going to be a 4 Series Grand Coupe coming out, which is a 4 Series but with 4 doors, right? So they did this thing where you had the 3 Series, which was the saloon with 4 doors, and then they brought out the 4 Series, which was a 3-door version of that, and the 4 Series Grand Coupe is a 4-door version of the 3-door version of the 4-door 3 Series. I think I got that right. But anyway, the first look at this is the i4, which is the all-electric version of the 4-door version of the 3-door version of the 4-door version. So that's quite straightforward, I think we all agree.
Yeah.
So as well as having a really confusing name, i4, because it looks like a 3 Series, so obviously they can't call it the i3 because that exists. It's a Tesla Model 3 rival, and it's going to have an M version, apparently, which is probably going to be called the i4M, which will have 530 horsepower from 2 electric motors and a 367-mile range, which is pretty decent, and it'll do 0-60 in 4 seconds. This new i4 has got the new version of iDrive, which has just been announced, which is the twiddly knob infotainment system, which I think is quite good. And it's going to have over-the-air updates and all that kind of stuff. And although they've got rid of lots of the buttons to put them in the screen, you still get the twiddly iDrive knob in this, so it's fine by me. It's just, if you're not quite used to the new 4 Series and the new 3 Series with the new M3 and M4 of the big fangs, this looks like that, but the grille is shut because it's an electric car. So it's challenging. We'll get onto the M3 and M4 later because I've driven them, but it's coming. Electric i4. Just, yeah. BMW, can you sort your names out? Because I think you're in a bit of a pickle. You need to stop selling the i3 so you can call this the i3.
You would have thought that with the team behind it and everything, that is going to be pretty great to drive.
Yes, and if it's anything like the M3 and M4, and this shares a chassis with that 4 Series and 3 Series, then it will be good. It will be really good to drive, but you'll just get internet people saying, I can't handle the looks. But I think we're kind of coming off the tail end of that kind of mountain of hate that we've had. I think people have got used to them. People don't mind them now that they're out and about. Lucy, you're smirking.
I still hate it.
Is this because you still hate it?
I just think it looks so ugly. And especially with the number plate, I feel like more car brands should design cars knowing that most countries are going to make it have a front number plate. And I feel like the number plate just splits it in half and it just kind of ruins it, in my opinion. I don't really like it. I was going to ask you how much it is versus a Model 3, because I feel like it's going to be more expensive.
I doubt it, to be honest. I don't know. I imagine it will probably be about 50 grand, which is the Model 3 everyone buys is 50 grand. So, I'm not sure. I don't think they've announced the price yet. But I think it'll be out and about later this year, and hopefully we'll get to drive it. Right, final bit of news for the week is not really news because we don't know what it is yet. Annoyingly, on the day this podcast comes out, Aston Martin are announcing a track-focused hardcore version of the Vantage, the V8 sports car. we've seen teasers of it at the moment. That's all we've seen. And we've seen what looks like it being an homage to the new Formula One safety car, which for some races this year is going to be an Aston Martin Vantage. So we're going to not see Mercedes. I think it's Mercedes at the moment. I don't watch Formula One at all. Safety cars, and the new Vantage safety car looks really good. It's got loads of aero. It's got a really cool kind of bluey, yellowy, greeny, mostly greeny, yellowy, not bluey, paint scheme. And this car looks like it's going to steal the aero from that and the paint scheme from that. And various people are reporting it's going to have 530 horsepower and be a bit tuned up and quite hardcore. So that'll be quite a special thing, I guess. I wonder if it'll be like an N430, like the old V8 Vantage with the yellow bit around the grille. That was always quite special, quite cool. We will find out next week, because we're recording this on a Friday and it comes out on Monday at the same time as the car. Brilliant organisation for us and Aston Martin. You can tell we don't work closely with them. But anyway, that, I'm afraid, is the end of Waffly News. Lucy Brown.
Yes.
You, a couple of weeks ago, tried something quite ambitious, didn't you? You tried to film with Jeremy Clarkson, with Richard Hammond and James May in the same day, travelling around the country in a COVID-safe manner for essential work.
Yes, well, basically...
And you did it.
I think we are going to get a few comments about this. Basically, we wanted to film 2021 video updates with all three of them, but they're all so busy at the moment that the only day that all three of them were free to film was the same day. And annoyingly, they all live quite far away from each other. So we then decided we had to film all three of them. We didn't want to miss the opportunity. And it meant having to do quite a big road trip.
And you, normally when you do a road trip, you just pick a nice sensible car with a large fuel tank, comfortable seats, everything else. But you did it in a Tesla Model 3. So that must have been quite stressful, just having to charge several times, I guess.
I mean, you say that. I find the Tesla Model 3 really comfortable. We were in the car
for
it's
comfortable.
8 hours, I think, and I thought it was lovely. Really comfortable. We did have to stop and charge once, but I reckon we wouldn't have had to do it if we didn't have... So, you know, when you're charging it, you can set a maximum limit. And when we picked the car up, the maximum limit wasn't set to its actual maximum capacity. So we only had about 300...
Set to 80%.
Yeah, 80%. So we only had 300 miles of range. So I reckon we could have made it maybe without... So if that hadn't happened. But yeah, we had to rush to a charger after filming with Richard. And we had to go up to sort of Birmingham area. And we did actually get to the charger with about 6 miles of range left, which was a little bit uncomfortable.
And did you then have to sit there for 2 hours charging it up, pretending that you're eating your burger really slowly?
No, we put it on charge for about 35 minutes. We had enough time to go get a bonus banquet from KFC, get a Starbucks, and then we were done.
Did you share the boneless banquet, or was it one each?
One each. Obviously, a bonus banquet is for one person. It is for one person, right? I haven't just been eating a two-person meal my whole life, have I?
I'm genuinely not sure. I've never had a boneless banquet.
You've never had a boneless banquet?
No.
Nor from KFC?
I've only ever had one KFC in my life, so...
What?
Yeah.
Madness.
I had one for lunch an hour ago. It's all about the trilogy box meal, because you get the Zinger burger, but you also get popcorn chicken and a mini fillet and beans and chips. So you kind of get all the best bits of KFC. Their chips are terrible. They need to stop pretending that they can do chips and just like outsource their chip manufacturer to McDonald's or someone and just own it. KFC are quite good at doing like self-deprecating PR. So maybe they do a campaign where we've given up trying to make chips and we just buy them in from somewhere else.
An excellent...
Yeah? Good. Right, carry on. This.
I know, I was going to say an excellent diversion.
Yeah, but like I'd say, we started off from where I live. Luckily, I couldn't really be bothered to commute up to London, so Mike kindly came down here and we started from the south coast. Went up to Richard's first, got there for 10 a.m, so we had to start pretty early. Filming went pretty well with Richard, despite it being sort of quite miserable weather. And we filmed in the middle of a field, which wasn't ideal for our new trainers. But then Richard, really weirdly, when he found out what we were doing and our plan was to go to Jeremy and James's, he just pulled out this giant stuffed giraffe, and you'll see it in the video because it went live on yesterday on Sunday. He had this giant sort of stuffed giraffe.
It's not a euphemism.
Pardon?
It's not a euphemism, giant stuffed giraffe.
I think it's because we filmed in this sort of hut in his garden, and I reckon what happened is he just saw it while we were in there filming, and he thought it might have been funny to give it to us because it's quite big and annoying to put in the car. I think maybe he was trying to do like they used to do on Top Gear, when they used to give each other sort of really annoying gifts on road trips. Maybe it was that, but it was us that was being inconvenienced.
I remember.
But yeah, he gave us this giant giraffe.
Yeah, someone got a massive model ship, didn't they?
Yeah, in the Vietnam one. Yeah, the motorbike, was that Vietnam? I think so. But yeah, so we had to drive to Jeremy's.
Yes.
And then follow on to May's with this giant stuffed giraffe, which May was fairly surprised about receiving.
Did he take the giraffe into his home to keep forever?
Well, we gave it to him and he said, "Oh, this is great, lovely." And then I sort of spotted him going up sort of outside near towards, there's some bins not far from his bunker. I saw him going outside. I wondered what he was doing because he was carrying the giraffe and he hadn't said that he was going home and he hadn't locked up or anything. So I followed him out and he went and put it in the bin. But I think after that, Mike was a bit upset because he thought it was quite cool. So I think he took it home and gave it to his girlfriend.
Oh, that's sweet. So
a bin
Mike's
juice
girlfriend
giraffe.
has it. Yeah. Excellent. So you did Hammond first, then Clarkson. How was Clarkson? Was he on good form?
Yeah, he was great, actually. I always get quite nervous because I haven't filmed with Jeremy that often. So I was getting quite nervous in the car waiting for him to arrive. Mike had sort of fallen asleep at this point. He had a little nap in the car, so he obviously wasn't very stressed. But yeah, Jeremy arrived and he was on great form. He was in a really nice mood. He still had his beard at the point. He shaved that off now. There was a little kid in his farm shop who'd drawn him a little picture of a 911 and he was just chatting away with him saying, "Oh, thanks." And he was being really cute to the kid. Then we did our video and then he had a meeting, so he had to go off, so we didn't get to do that much with him. But yeah, he was on great form and it was awesome to film with him.
And he revealed a few things, didn't he, about the next episode, the Grand Tour. I think he said they're going to be filming another one in the UK and then they'll think about doing the next one abroad, or should be able to do the next one abroad.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. We were very surprised. We didn't expect to get any sort of big exclusives about the Grand Tour or his farming show or anything. We just thought he'd be telling us what he's been up to in 2021 so far and his other plans. But I guess a lot of his plans are the Grand Tour. So yeah, he said that he's seen the first cut of the Scotland episode, which I think quite a few people know now is the next episode. They went and filmed that during COVID last year. And he told us that they have planned, and I think they might even have scheduled the next filming of the Grand Tour, which will be in the UK. Don't know where in the UK. Could be Scotland, Wales. I don't know where else would be nice. Don't know what you're thinking might be, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they usually go somewhere fairly rural, don't they? So
Hammersmith?
Probably Scotland or Wales, somewhere a bit out of the way. Yeah, maybe Hammersmith, maybe Soho, central London. Like turn Soho's empty back streets into a racetrack or something.
Maybe their big trip for the Grand Tour next episode will be going from James's house to Hammond's house to Jeremy's house.
In a day in an electric car.
That's a great idea. But yeah, he told us that. He also told us that his farm show is going to be very different to what he's done before. Which is going to be quite exciting to see. There's no sort of jokes and falling over. It's actually quite a serious show, which I think is going to be quite cool. I don't know if you ever saw, he had a few documentaries, mainly on sort of World War II stuff. And I also thought they were quite good.
Of course I saw them.
I was going to say, obviously Tim Rodey watched those.
I mean, not because I'm a massive Clarkson fan, but because I'm a massive fan of the Second World War.
Exactly. So I thought they were quite cool. So I think it might be more like that than the Grand Tour, but that's just what my thinking is. He also said that Richard had an accident while they were filming in Scotland. Obviously, we're not really surprised by that. And that the next episode, the Scotland one, is going to be like Clarkson, Hammond and May. I forget what he said. I want to say Unchained, Unplugged. But yeah, Unplugged. Definitely not Unchained.
Unplugged, I think. Yeah, so Unplugged. So it's an acoustic set. Yeah. So it sounds like they're going back to the old school, presumably just dicking around. I would say low rent, but only because it's in the UK. It's probably not low rent. It costs £1 billion to shoot. But yeah, that's all quite exciting stuff. I hope we get to a point where we're having more than one episode of the Grand Tour a year. That would be quite nice, because it's nice and all, but it's always one in December, and then you wait a year and you kind of forget who they are a bit, and then they do another one. So yeah, that would be cool. And then James, you went to James's bunker and talked about, I saw the video, it came out the weekend. He wants to open a donkey sanctuary, is that right?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a wild card. When we asked him the question, what would you do if you had a blank check for any TV show or anything? And we thought it'd be some sort of, I don't know, Airfix style show or something like that. But yeah, he said he wants to open an animal sanctuary for normal animals like donkeys and rabbits and things. I'm not sure if rabbits are an animal sanctuary thing, but yeah, he seems sort of quite content with living in a little hut on an animal sanctuary for the rest of his life. I thought it was quite endearing.
Yeah, that's quite sweet. I think, yeah, James is always quite surprising. You never really know what he's going to say. Because like you said, he could have gone like, oh yes, I want to do a really in-depth series on the inner workings of the Airfix factory.
I mean, Rachael asked him a very similar question a couple of weeks ago on the Food Tribe podcast, and he said he'd love to do a show about poetry. So it is...
He doesn't know what he wants to do.
Yeah, or he wants
I'm just looking forward to him doing...
He's keeping his options
yeah,
open.
That's true. Yeah, I'm quite excited about him doing some more travel shows like Ant-Man in Japan. I think he said on the DriveTribe video that he's got 6 or 7 options that are all fully researched, just waiting for restrictions to lift, and then they'll pick one and go and do it.
Yeah, I keep prodding him on that. I keep sort of hinting like, oh, if you need a runner or if you need someone to help out or anything, just let me know. Nope, nothing.
Yeah, I like that. The idea of that is nice, but the reality is, if you're a runner on one of those shows, you don't really get to experience the places you're traveling to. You're just tearing around working the entire time.
But I'd get to experience what it'd be like being a runner on an actual TV show, which would be quite cool.
True. I think probably terrible, though, is the answer. Or quite stressful. Right, that is... that's the end of Lucy. Is that too savage? Lucy, you've got your own segment music. I should get one that just goes, Lucy. So there we go. That's an update from Clarkson, Hammond and May, which is all very exciting, really. I was just envious, and I saw in the video that James May's got the new Honda Fireblade in his garage, and he didn't tell anyone. Didn't tell me. I'm quite excited about that.
Didn't tell anyone. He didn't tell me.
He didn't tell me.
Really bitter.
Yeah, he actually told me when he got it. He phoned me when he was in the dealership. Just saying.
Lucy, you're rubbish at passing on information, though.
I didn't think it was a big deal. He already had a Fireblade. But a different one?
This is an all-new one.
This one's much nicer looking.
No, it's got an all-new engine. It's actually competitive now. It's amazing. 220-ish horsepower or something. It's ridiculous. So that'd be great for potting around Hammersmith on. Okie dokie. Let's quickly get on to what I've been driving, or what we've been driving. Rachael Hogg, have you driven your Suzuki Swift?
Yes, I have. I've been all over the place in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, genuinely. Well, I did my first big drive in it the other day because I went out on an actual car launch for once, so I have actual cars to talk about. I was out driving the updated Discovery and Velar.
And how are they?
And Velar I can't talk about yet. Discovery, okay. So midlife facelift for the Disco, not midlife crisis. So yeah, few changes, exterior and interior, kind of the usual kind of LED headlights, bit of a change at the back. The offset number plate is still there, which don't know how we feel about that. Not a big fan.
I'm still not used to it.
No, me either. I took a couple of pictures like from loads of different angles, and one of the angles I got, I was like, oh, it was just the kind of rear 3/4 was just kind of, yeah.
It's the self-delete when you think,
exactly.
Cute, might delete later, and actually didn't even feel cute, so I'm just deleting.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, they've got rid of the V6 engines, and so it's inline sixes now, all mild hybrid. So we drove petrol and diesel, both on and off road. Managed to get a grand total of 15 mpg in the petrol,
Nice.
and pretty much double that for the diesel. So still a rather large case for that. It made me laugh though, because so it was at East Newcastle, which is the Land Rover experience. Obviously, a lot of motoring journalists have been there and done lots of crazy, super hardcore off-roading. So the PR, Kim Palmer, said, "Oh, we're going to, obviously, because COVID compliance, so you can't have anyone in the car with you, even though we all had tests in the morning. Can't have anyone in the car with you, so it's really, really tame, like super tame off-roading." And then they just kind of let us loose on this course, which it was not tame, Tim and Lucy. It was not tame, but it was a lot of fun. And again, I mean, the Disco off-road, like it's one of the most capable cars on sale, if not the most capable car. It's incredible. So obviously it managed to deal with it all perfectly adequate. Well, not adequately, like amazingly well, despite me just kind of not necessarily knowing what I was doing.
I've done those courses a few times in the new Defender, and I always just think the car's kind of doing it all for you, and it's kind of like you can go into that with really not much off-road experience or any off-road experience and still get round the really tough stuff.
Yeah.
There's just a few bits on the really tough trails which I think are only Defender rated, so only Defenders can go on them. And there's a few bits there where you will get stuck if you don't go fast enough. There's like you've got to bomb it down a downhill bit to go up an almost vertical steep bit. But it's good fun, and
it's really good fun. And also, we were on 22-inch alloys, so we weren't doing the really crazy off-road stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say. And so, did you drive there and back in the same cars then? So, or did you get?
Yeah, same cars, didn't change anything, and they said they never do change any of it anyway. Because obviously, a lot of manufacturers, sometimes when you're switching between on and off-roading, they'll change the tires, change loads of stuff. Whereas Disco, it's just same as, so you just go for it.
Yeah, when I've been there in Defender stuff before, you change into different cars, but only, I think, so you don't smack it into a tree and not have a car to drive home in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and some people came pretty close. There are a few bits on one of the tougher courses where you have to fold your door mirrors in, otherwise you don't get between two trees, and it's kind of on an angle sideways, so on a kind of side of a hill, and you slide down towards a tree, and it grips just before you go into the tree, and it's really... yeah, it's quite tense. It's like, oh no, I'm going to smack my mirror off on that. But that's good. That 6-cylinder diesel, I thought was amazing. I drove it in Range Rover Sport, I think.
Yeah.
It's super fast, and it sounds pretty good for a diesel as well.
Yeah, I mean, just everything, like soundproofing and everything, they've just really, really nailed it. It's just, despite being such a huge car, and it did feel big, they were all left-hand drives as well, so it's kind of, on the roads around the Malverns was interesting. And also on the off-roading, because obviously it kind of throws off your perspective a little bit. But yeah, it's just those engines are so smooth, so capable. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, I'd like to drive the new Defender with that 6-cylinder diesel. I only drove the 6-cylinder petrol with 400 horsepower, and it was fine, but you'd never buy it because it got about 15 mpg, like you said, and it was just like, it's not fast enough to make that worthwhile. But yeah, that sounds good. I've just swapped with Mike Fernie. I had a video here at DriveTribe. He's got a Land Rover Discovery Sport long-term test car, and it goes back in a week or two, so I've nicked it for a week to see what it's like. Because I've never actually driven one. I think I've driven every other Land Rover product, but not the Discovery Sport, which is obviously the affordable Evoque-based Discovery, so it's a lot smaller. And I quite like it already. It's nice and soft and comfortable and roomy. Fernie's like, oh, it's not sporty enough. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I've now got 2 kids. That's the last thing I want. So yeah, he's in my Mini Clubman JCW, which goes back in a couple of months to Mini. That is wicked. No matter what I do, I get 30 mpg or 28 mpg or something. And Fernie got out of it earlier and was like, it's quite fast, isn't it? I mean, yes, it's quite fast. It's 310 horsepower and 4-wheel drive and 4.7 to 60 or something, 4.9. So yeah, that's doing really well. Although I've worked out that of all the long-term test cars I've ever had, this one I've done the fewest miles in because of COVID. I've only done 2,000 miles in it. But I think it's the one I've spent the longest sitting in. So hospital car parks. I think I spent 24 hours in a week sat in hospital car parks in that, because girlfriend in hospital, being checked out, having babies, that kind of stuff. I wasn't really allowed in the hospital for much of that time, so I had to sit in the car park and fall asleep and or listen to the excellent Al Murray World War II podcast. We have ways of making you talk, which I highly recommend if you're into World War II. Otherwise, it's probably a bit wary. But yeah,
two World War II mentions in the podcast. Is that making up for the fact that we haven't recorded the podcast for a few weeks?
Yes, okay. I'm just getting them all out of my system.
Okay.
I'm just getting them all out of my system now. Right, yeah, I've driven a bunch of stuff. I'll try and do these really briefly because I just want to tell you about them, but I don't want to spend too long on them. So I drove the new BMW M3 and M4, and I think these are cars that have both been maligned by the internet for their looks, and now finally had a chance to drive it last week in the pissing rain, to be fair. And although there's a four-wheel drive version of both coming, these were both rear-wheel drive. And I was actually, kind of woke up in the morning, looked out the window before I went to this, and thought this is going to be a waste of time because the last M3 was so terrifying, even in the wet. It would do this thing where halfway through the rev range, the back tyres would spin up, even in the dry, and you'd be fighting the thing, and it just wouldn't be that safe feeling, to be honest, or that fun. But the new one is worlds away. Like the thing is, the chassis is so much tighter and tauter, you feel completely in control, even in the wet. And I kind of actually summoned the courage eventually to put the stability control in M dynamic mode, and I kind of let it slide out of roundabouts in the wet on about a quarter throttle because that new engine is ridiculously torquey. And yeah, it's just one of those cars that kind of made me feel like I knew what I was doing, and I don't know what I'm doing if you haven't guessed by now. Really enjoyed it, both of them. I'd have the M3 because it's got back doors, and the M4 I don't think looks quite as butch. The M3 has got bulbous rear arches, whereas the M4 doesn't. And the reason, adenoid voice, is that the BMW 3 Series is as standard a narrower car, so they had to punch the rear track out. Whereas the 4 Series has the same track, but it's a wider car as standard. So there we go. So they were great. Go and buy one if you've got £75,000 before options. That's quite a lot of money. Right, I've also driven the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Mach-E? So this is the electric Mustang that everyone on the internet seems to hate because it's not a Mustang, it's electric. And it's great, it's comfortable, it's roomy, it's quick enough, and it handles like an old school American muscle car in that it's four-wheel drive, the one I drove for £58,000 for the dual motor extended range. And it would still slide gently, very slowly, because it's got lots of body roll out of roundabouts, like comically, and it feels like that's been engineered in. So you feel like you're in an old school American car chase coming out of roundabouts, and it's quite cool. I liked it. It's got a massive infotainment screen that's actually quite easy to use. It's like a big portrait Tesla Model S type thing before they went back to landscape ones. And I really enjoyed it. Again, it's quite expensive, and it will do about 270 miles in the real world on a charge, but I had a lot of fun with it. And I drove that all over the place. Had a good time. God, I'm going to have to do these more quickly, otherwise you're all going to stop listening. The new Volkswagen Golf R is very good. I'm saying this about every car. It goes sideways now. The four-wheel drive, although the one I drove didn't have the drift mode, because that's the performance pack, even the regular Golf R, if you boot it out of the junction, it will skid sideways from the back end with everything switched on. It's much more entertaining than the last Golf R, and it's still ridiculously fast. I think Matt Watson from CarWow, God bless his soul, he did a 0 to 60 mile an hour test with GPS logging equipment. Volkswagen claims, I think, 4.7 to 60, and it does it in 4 seconds dead. So it's faster than quite a lot of old Ferraris and stuff. So go and buy one of those. That's 40 grand. Really good. It's a Golf. If you can live with the new infotainment system, you will love it. Next car, Puma ST. So this is a Ford Fiesta ST on stilts. It's bright green, the one I drove. It's got a manual gearbox. It's front-wheel drive. If you get the optional performance pack, it's got a mechanical limited slip diff at the front. It doesn't feel as fast as the Fiesta ST. Obviously, it's a bit heavier, a bit taller. It feels medium. It feels like Mini Cooper S sort of speed, maybe a bit slower, in fact. And it's not quite as leery as the Fiesta ST, which is one of the leiriest cars you can buy in terms of handling. Still, there's a bit of skidding around. It's good fun, and it's got quite a big boot, and it's got the mega box under the boot floor.
Love the mega box.
Yeah, the mega box is really
mega
good.
box. Mega box. Mega box. I'm obsessed with the mega box.
When I was filming it, I did my review, and I lifted up the boot floor to look at the mega box before I rolled the camera. And there was a massive cardboard box in there with some lovely presents from Ford to tell me to say good things about the car. On the podcast. No, it was a box of tea and a mug, because I was meant to do a Zoom call with the chassis engineer to talk about it before I filmed it, and it was called ST time, as in we're having a cup of ST.
Oh, right.
All the best things start with a pun, as Lucy knows from all of my video ideas. And yeah, sadly I only found this once I'd filmed most of it, so it didn't sway me, and I don't drink tea anyway, so there we go. Puma ST, very good for an SUV, but it's 30-odd thousand pounds, so it's quite expensive for not a huge car. Right. One last car. I wanted to pack all of these in because I know that next week I'll forget about them, so you're getting them all now. Sorry. Finally, I driv. Sorry.
He's done.
This is my reading level at the moment. Yeah, I'm just going to read Goodnight Moon. Sorry, I'm recording a podcast in my 2-year-old daughter's bedroom. I'll show you the giraffes on the wall in a minute if you're watching this on my channel.
I drift. Oh, Tim, I feel like it just shows your absolute lack of sleep right now. Bless you.
Hey, I'm getting a solid 5 hours every night on the lounge floor. It's great. No, I drove the best car I've ever driven.
I was waiting for this one.
It's hard. I don't like driving cars that I genuinely fall in love with, because I find it hard to talk about them without sounding like a massive cliche, or without sounding like, you know, every journalist out there. I went up to Porsche and I drove their GT3 RS. So it's 2 years old, not on sale anymore, because we haven't driven the new GT3, and then there will be a new GT3 RS probably next year or later this year. So it's the 991.2 generation GT3 RS in bright Viper green with a bright green roll cage, bright green carbon bucket seats that you can't adjust very much, little green stripe on the steering wheel for the 12 o'clock position, green stripes below the gear stick, the green key. The key was the same color because they do that thing where for £200 you can have the key, which is in the shape of a car, painted the same color as your car, which is awesome.
Cute.
And
I want to hate that, but I love it.
Yeah, I know. And it's automatic only, and it's got 520 horsepower from that amazing 4-litre flat six engine, which redlines at 9,000 RPM. And I'll just basically, a video I hopefully go up on my channel will be up on my Tim Roady Drive stuff by now on this. I get slightly teary because I start talking about Sabine Schmitz the morning she died, and it was all a bit sad. But you start it, and I've never been in a car like from a German manufacturer where, even though the straight flat six is like quite well balanced, the whole car is vibrating because it just feels like a race car, and it's kind of like got this lumpy vibration, like, and you'll be sitting in your seat kind of jiggling, and then the engine warms up and it gets smoother, but it just feels like a race car. And I got into a motorway, stuck it in second gear, and took it out to 9,000 RPM, which I think is about 80 or 90 miles an hour in second gear, which is ridiculous. And the noise inside the cabin is insane. It's so loud. There's basically no sound deadening. You can hear every stone flicking up in the back wheel arches, and like the roll cage, the stuff rattling against the roll cage, and you just feel like you're in a race car on the road. It's absurdly fast. It sounds incredible. The chassis is amazing. Like, you get the confidence to drive it like an absolute knob in about 5 minutes. It's ridiculous how it makes you feel. But it's so stiff. I was doing like 70, 80 miles an hour down this B road in 7th gear, just cruising to get to a filming location. And I went over a crest that I didn't really see, and the whole thing jumped. Like, not far, but I got all 4 wheels off the ground because it was so stiff, and I didn't realize what speed I was doing. It's that kind of car. And the brakes make a lot of noise when you use them because they're carbon ceramics and they take a while to warm up, and you have to drive it hard.
That noise is something I will never get over. The noise of carbon ceramic brakes. Ugh.
Yeah, it wasn't a squeaky noise on this one. It was just like whoosh, whoosh.
Okay.
But the thing,
just do that once again.
Whoosh, whoosh. You got to do the head shake.
Okay.
Obviously, if you're only listening to this on audio, you can't see me. I'm just moving my head about a bit. But the thing that the thing I found enjoying the most, weirdly, was the gearbox. Obviously, internet nerds want a manual gearbox and everything, but this is, you get GT3 if you want a manual gearbox. The GT3 RS is the one that sets track like lap times, and it's hardcore, and you don't want to be held up by a clutch or anything like that. Honestly, it's the fastest downshifting gearbox. You can put it in sport mode as well as making faster. You just click the left paddle and instantly the engine's whom, whum, and it's just like, I'm so excited. And you can just do it over and over again, and you're doing loads of unnecessary downshifts. And because it revs to 9,000, you can downshift into second at 60 miles an hour if you want to. And then you just make lots of noise. So yeah, that's basically, it was so good. It put every other car I've ever driven into perspective in terms of everything, pretty much, apart from steering. The steering was okay, but I think it's obviously better in something like a Lotus. Yeah, it's pretty much my life goal now to be able to save enough money one day to buy one. But these things are going ridiculous money. So they were 160 grand new. This one is probably worth more than that, even though it's only 2 years old. It's probably 180 grand now. But oh my God, I want one ever so much. If you ever get the chance to drive one, do it, seize it with both hands, and go and have a go. Go and have a go. So yes, thank you to Porsche UK, because I only drove it because I went over there in February to drive the Taycan rear-wheel drive, and they have all their press cars in the car park, and it's in Porsche Reading. It's a dealership, but bolted onto the side of the dealership is the head office of Porsche in the UK, and they have all their press fleet out in the front car park, and there's an IKEA next to it, and I think there's a school somewhere, so they have school kids walking up and down outside all the time, and they put all the cars outside, and they're like, well, we might as well share them, and we have school kids coming in and taking photos with them, and we kind of encourage that because, well, we want people to like our cars, and it's just a cool thing. There's no point hiding them away in the workshop. And so I saw this GT3 RS last time. I was like, can I come back and have a go in that? And, like,
you took a picture with it like an excited school child.
Yeah, it's the only car I think I've ever taken a selfie of in the driver's seat. I'm not at influencer level where I get someone to take my photo of me lifting my heel, walking towards it, parked in the middle of the road, like illegally or anything like that. So yeah, it made me feel like a child again. But yeah. Go and buy one if you can afford one. If you can afford one, you've probably already got one.
I was going to say, how many cars have you asked people to buy in this episode?
Basically,
like the fifth one.
I'm trying to think. I haven't really driven a bad car in the past month or two. No one really makes terrible cars anymore.
No, that's very true.
It makes car journalism, you kind of end up really nitpicking, but the reality is there's no bad cars. But that said, I'm driving my first Dacia next week, so that might change. I'm going on the Dacia Sandero Stepway launch or something. And I'm also driving the Kia Sorento PHEV. So I'm keeping it real. GT3 RS 1 week. And I just, I like driving normal cars because it's more important than driving a GT3 RS, frankly. And it's more useful. My neighbor outside, she's just taken her Scirocco to We Buy Any Car and sold it. And she's like, Tim, I want to buy a 10-year-old BMW X1 or a 5-year-old Skoda Yeti. What do I buy? No. What do you think I said?
Yeti.
Yes! Do you like the Skoda? I'm guessing Lucy thinks the Skoda Yeti is about as cool as Mike Fernie's selection of coats.
I learned to drive in a Skoda Yeti. I quite like that car.
You learned to drive in a Yeti?
Yeah, I leant forward because I thought you would have said, actually, you should buy a cheap new car. Because that's what you keep telling me to not get a Tesla, but get something. Actually, no, that's the opposite. Tell me to buy something old. Ignore what I just said.
Well done, Lucy. Basically, I tell you to buy anything other than the Tesla because
I can't
buy a Tesla. Well, you can't afford it, and also it's a new car, and they'll lose their money quite a lot because they're electric. I know Teslas don't lose as much, but you might as well go and buy a Skoda Yeti. Let's all go and buy Skoda Yetis, and then we can all go and meet on a track day and have a one-make Skoda Yeti race series. Yeah? No? Okay, fine.
I'm in.
I don't like
I had 2 Skoda Yetis.
I think the gears...
You didn't like the gearbox?
Too close together. I'm going to sound like a complete noob here. I don't mean the fancy technical part of the gearbox like you talk about. I mean the movement from first, second, third, fourth or whatever is so tight in a Yeti compared to my Mini, which has got quite a wide gate. It's so tight on a Yeti.
I've never I've never heard anyone say that. I had two as company cars. I think they were both manual. I can't remember, to be honest. I just really liked them because they had charm and a bit of character.
I like them too.
And it's sad that Skoda never replaced them.
They've got the old Touareg infotainment, so it's got quite decent infotainment as well for quite a cheap car. I like the Yeti. It just looks horrible.
Yes, agreed.
Which one though? Because they did the facelift and they took away
all of them, Tim. All of
really?
them.
All so bad.
Oh no, I quite liked it. The best thing about the Yeti, well, not the best thing about the Yeti, they drive really well. They drive quite sportily for an SUV, but also you can take the rear seats out completely, really easily. All the rear seats unclip, and you can take them out, and it turns into a massive van, which is quite cool. And I once had
look like a van.
And I once had a picnic sitting on the leather seats from my top spec Skoda Yeti. There we go. Isn't that fun fact? Right. Anyway, that's probably enough for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Sorry it's been a while, but we'll be back. We should be back next week, he tentatively says, nodding. I know I've agreed to do something next Friday, but I can't remember what it is. I don't think it'll stop me recording a podcast. I've been Tim Rodey.
I've been Rachel.
And I've been Lucy.
And here's some awful music. I think it's the right one as well.
Sounds a bit more like flat bass than the other ones.
Well, no, the outro is always different. I think as long as it's just got a car at the end of it, it's the right one.
And if not, you know you're really good at car noises, so you can just fill in.
And it's the bad boy thing. Oh yeah. It gets worse every time I listen to this. This is on one of those weird Spotify sex playlists, isn't
it? Goes on forever.
It goes. Hey, there we go. Thanks everyone. Bye.